Hello again, everyone. Thank you for visiting my channel. I excel and so can you. Today I wanted to make one more additional video on things you might want to consider adding to your Dave Ramsey debt snowball tracker, which we made in the previous video. As a quick recap, in this chart what you'll find are five colored lines as well as a black dotted line. The five colored lines represent five separate fictional debt categories, and it's just tracking the gradual forecasted decline of those debt balances over time. We also have a nice little snowball here, which indicates the current month of filming, that is, and what the expected debt balance is believed to be according to our chart logic. Now, one feature that you might consider adding to this chart as a way of keeping yourself motivated while you work towards paying off your debts early could be something that would help demonstrate how far you've come. Now, as you might have noticed from previous experiences using Excel, whenever you insert a new chart, Excel by default is going to want to automatically attempt to adjust its vertical and horizontal axis scale in order to basically maximize chart space usage. For example, through some technical logical process calculation that I don't actually understand, Excel knows that if the farthest data point to the right here is just short of November of 2019, then it should probably stop counting sometime after March of 2020, because if it tried going any further, these lines would probably be a lot more meshed together and a whole lot less legible, and that would be bad. And furthermore, you might also notice that Excel doesn't make this decision only once, unless you specifically tell it to only make it once by going to axis, either vertical or horizontal, format axis, and here you have the option of setting a fixed minimum and maximum units for your units of scale. But as I said, by default, they should all be auto. I don't know if it's possible to set some sort of default fixed value. That would be weird. Otherwise, Excel will potentially adjust itself every time a change is made to the source data. And as a result, as you make payments towards your debts, you may lose sight of exactly how much better you are doing by making extra payments than had you only made the minimum expected payments. Okay, so one way to do this would be to just add basically default lines to each one of these categories and maybe even the total, which I do in this chart. So I have two lines for each category. I have a lighter dotted line for each category, which represents the default path, which I have labeled just as def at the end of each one of these. You can look at my legend here. And then we keep a darker solid line of the path that we're actually taking. Okay? And so pretty much the only difference between these two lines in our actual source data is that the dotted lines do not consider changes typically made in here. Technically, it's also not taking into account any changes made in this original table here. So in previous videos, I showed you how to write this code, which will take this beginning data and also taken into account your additional payments table, which I might have to make a correction in my previous video. I might have had part of the formula here, possibly due to a copy and drag strategy that I used to create these other categories. This is the correct formula for it. Okay, and so this part is specifically looking to add whatever's in here, in this column here, so long as the months match up to these months in the particular cell case, and that this header matches the category in this part. Okay, I might have made that incorrectly in my previous video, so I apologize for the confusion. I'll make sure to upload this to my OneDrive so you'll have the correct formula, or just look at it now. It's pretty simple portion of what later becomes fairly complicated mess. However, this part of the mess pretty much stays the same. Okay, so sorry for that. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So I showed you how to make this, and then from there we made this very similar table that the only change it does is after the first 0 at the end of your debt balance, it will start producing NAs, which results in the line actually stopping after it hits 0, as opposed to what I accidentally did here. It hits 0 and then it just follows along the bottom, as our actual bottom value in this chart is actually 0 anyway. But in order to get the data for the dotted lines, all you basically have to do, assuming you didn't make any changes to your beginning balance, your APRs, or your minimum payment expectations. If you did make changes, you'll just have to remember what they were originally. But assuming this is all the same as from the very beginning, and maybe you've already recorded a couple additional payments you've made throughout whatever times have elapsed since you first made this chart, just write down what you had in this table just for your note-taking for in a little bit. We got 2,000 in this row. Okay, and just delete it. Just delete that data, and let's go back to our debt chart, and you'll notice, or that one doesn't really help. Now look, the solid line is perfectly in line with the dotted line, and that's because there is no difference between them. So that's great. So that means the data in our purple table is exactly what we started out with. So what we want to do in order to keep this data and remember it is we'll just copy all of it, go all the way to the bottom. You can hold down Control, Shift, and then down arrow to do what I just did. You copy, and then you can do it right at the end of your purple table. Just paste values right beside it so that they're still all in line. But you need to make sure to paste values when you do that. So that way, in this table, we have formulas, but in this unpurple area, we just have the actual numbers at that moment in time. And that's pretty much all you have to do. Just do what I did before. So now you're going to select all of this, go Control Shift down, hit it twice because we had a blank spot in that upper left corner, and we can go to Insert Line Chart. And I'm not going to go through the entire process, but this is pretty much what we want. As you'll see, I'll go back up here. Okay, you look at this chart and you say, hey, I only see 6 lines, whereas I should have 12, shouldn't I? Well, let's go ahead and re-enter the ad hoc payments that we made previously. 700 to the car, 2,000 to student loans in those various months. Boom, now we have additional lines that show up. Here we have the small payment made towards the $700 to car 1, and we also have the payments to the student loan, a bit larger, and both of those adjustments as a result impact our total, which is this blue line. Now all you have to do for this chart is just, play around with your formatting so that you have something that makes a little bit of logical sense. So that's pretty cool, I think. I don't know if this is the most attractive way of showing this data, but I also want to show you guys one more thing. Now, one major reason for keeping a report like this and actually to use it for is to actually know what is the date that you are expected to actually pay off these debts. And you can look at here, and just by coincidence, you'll notice that my horizontal axis is basically skipping every other month, and so sometimes it falls on an unlabeled month, and so that's inconvenient. And so one thing to really clearly point out the dates that you are expected to pay off your debts is to do just that, and I did it by doing this. So this also includes my double lines for each category. And this might not be the most attractive look, but it's getting the job done, and you'll get the idea. And I'm just leaving it to you to make the necessary adjustments to your data as needed. But you see here I have vertical lines that are pinpoint the month that each one of these debts is paid off. And of course I didn't bother putting a student loan paid off and a total paid off, because of course your last debt to be paid off will occur on the same date that all of your payments will have been paid off. So now all of these are lines, of course, or line from line graph option, but you might realize that you can't make a vertical line using a line chart. In fact, what these are scatter plots that I have added to our original line chart. Okay, and including scatter lines can be a great way of really showing skill in creating Excel dashboards and reports. Because there's just so much you can do with them, because you just have so many possibilities, and this is just one of the major ways to do it. Now, how did I do this? Let's go back to our source data, which is all in this first tab for your convenience after I reload this to my cloud. Here I have the whole table. This is the part where I'm adding the lines, and this might not be the best way of arranging it, but at least it works. Whenever you're doing a scatter plot, you want to clearly in your mind identify the x and y coordinates of each one of your points. So looking back at our chart, we know that our vertical axis, or the y-axis, is a dollar value, and our horizontal is a date. So we made sure that my x's were all dates and my y's were numbers. Okay, and the y in this case is very easy. So your bottom, you'll notice in the chart, we have 2 points for each one of these, base point and top point, and the base point is always on 0 for the y-axis, and then they're always at 25,000 at the top, assuming you want these lines in the first place. If you just want a dot to appear somewhere directly above the month, then that's also fine. Then you'll only have to do half as much work that I do here. Let's go back to the data. So for our top points, we have x's and y's for each one of the 5 categories of debt. And the most complicated part is the x, which is the month of that the debt is paid off, and it's actually not that complicated. It's just this offset function. Offset starting in H2, which is locked down. Let's go to H2. It's right here. So it's the column that we have the dates in our yellow table. And then we are going this many rows down, which is match. Look for the first 0 in basically column I, which is the credit card column in our yellow table. And we also want it to be an exact match. And we want to go 0 rows further to the right from this original starting point, basically. Okay, so let's just prove that my chart works. So we're starting from that date point here, and where you want to look for the first 0 in column I, which is the credit card 1 column. So let's look in our chart for the first 0, which is only 0. There we have it, 5/1/2016. So it's right. And we just have to do that for each one of these. You'll notice the function is all the same. The only adjustment I'm making is, so here we're going from I3 to I72, which is the bottom of my yellow table, 72. And then here we have J3. So we went over 1 column, but everything else is the same. Okay. And the base is also going to have to be directly below this, so we can just say equals BA3, so it equals this right here. So that's easy. Let's go back, if I still have it. Yep, just using this basic chart as an example of what you need to do. Once you have this data, again, you want these to all be 0, and these can be whatever looks good as your top vertical point within your chart, but I'll let you handle that. So okay, so we have this line chart, right? So in order to add a scatter plot to this line chart, we are going to go to Design. After selecting the chart, we go to Design, Select Data. We're going to add another series. We can give it a name. This will be credit card end. Okay. We'll hit OK for starters. Credit card end. Okay. But you don't actually see it because it doesn't have any data yet. Okay. We're going to select it in here by clicking on the name of it twice, not quickly. Go to Format, Chart Series Type, change it, and we want a scatter plot that has straight lines, scatter with straight lines and markers specifically. Okay, hit OK. Now it's going to look a little scary the first time you do that because now Excel's all confused, not knowing what you want. We're going back to select data. We're going to go back to credit card end. We're going to edit it, and then we are going to give it the X and Y values for the 2 points separately. So for X's, we want this, and while holding down Control, we're also going to hit this. Okay. And make sure to delete that equals 1 thing. Definitely not what you want. And then for Y, 25,000 and 0. And there's your line. Now after you add your first scatter point line, it's a lot easier afterwards to add an additional line. We'll just call it this right here, X, okay, Y. And make sure to be consistent. Of course, it doesn't really matter because the X's are the same. But yeah, hit OK. There you go. And just keep doing that with your other debts, and it should work out fine. And if you follow those instructions, you should probably get something that looks a little bit like this. I know it looks a little messy with everything being done at once and with only a single vertical axis. I guess I could also throw in real quick. Here you see these the labels here. I did that by selecting the marker points for each one of these. Or I guess, let's see, to get this result, which admittedly is a little tricky. So what you have, credit card paid, exclamation mark, new line, and the date that it was paid off. How do I do that? It's all, that entire portion is actually just the series name. So if I go back here and select data, and I think I credit card end. So when I went here, the series name, I just typed in credit card end. But if instead I reference this cell, BA, then it'll say the series name is whatever I decide to call right in this cell, which happens to be this formula, BA1, which is just the credit card, 1, and then ampersand, which is basically a concatenation of whatever follows it, double quotes, space, paid, exclamation mark, and then you hit Alt and then Enter in order to enter a new line instead of just entering what you typed in Excel, and then double quotes again, and that cements in that new line thing, ampersand again, and then I use the month function for the month labeled in this cell here right below it, ampersand, double quotes, slash, double quotes, ampersand, and then I do the right of the result of using the year function. The year function, of course, is going to give me 2016. So if I just take the right 2 characters of 2016, it just gives you 16. Obviously. So if we click on that marker now and slowly click on it again, so that it says add data label and not add data labels, we can add that, and it will assume you want the dollar value, which is your Y value for that point. And again, you want to make sure you're only formatting data label. You don't want the plural in this case. We want to put it above, okay, and we want to have the series name, not the Y value. And there you go. It has it in 3 lines here because the table's so the chart is so narrow, but if we widen it, now it has it as 2 lines, and if we stretched it even more, it would still only be 2 lines. Okay, I think that's all that I did in this latest version. This will probably be the last discussion of Dave Ramsey FPU stuff for a little while. I want to get back to some other sort of things and chart ideas in my next couple of videos. If you like this one, please like it, comment, and share it. Subscribe even. Leave a comment. I always try my best to respond to those. And thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye.